Local program funding provided by a generous grant from Union Pacific. Union Pacific, building America.
I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the Forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the Forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.
Hi, and welcome to the Forum, where we talk to interesting people doing interesting things in the North State.
We have a very special guest today, and one of the most interesting women in the North State that you would ever have the pleasure of meeting. Today you're going to meet her, our very own, the amazing Judy Salter. Welcome.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Particularly to be sitting here with you all.
Oh my goodness. Well, we know that you hail from North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And that you arrived here in 1991. Mm-hmm. And since then you've kind of been a philanthropic powerhouse. So tell us about some of the things that you've been involved in. I know that some of your major areas are Turtle Bay and the Women's Fund and early literacy. So what types of projects do you have going on right now with those areas?
Well, I'm going to start back just a little bit further,
Okay.
because when I first moved to Reading, I had never lived in a smaller town. I'd only lived in kind of pretty big urban centers. And I didn't quite know what to do.
Yeah.
When I came here, having left San Francisco, I thought I was just going to kill myself.
I'm
you
with
know?
you.
But I decided that what I really needed to do was understand this town and get involved in a lot of things and see what people were thinking and feeling.
Absolutely.
And that decision has really shaped my 22 plus years here.
Yeah.
This is a town that welcomes people. We don't have a lot of barriers to engagement. We're huge
right.
on volunteering. And that's why I love the North State.
Right.
We are very community-oriented, very people-oriented.
Yes.
And so through the years, I kind of find those projects that really spoke to my heart and took advantage of my talents.
Yes.
So that's been a great gift that this Reading community offers to anybody, whether you grew up here or whether you came from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
You can get involved. There are good people doing good things all over.
That's right, and I feel like sometimes, I moved here too from Sacramento, and I feel like people, once you get here, they take you under their wing,
Absolutely.
and they, guide you to different organizations and find out what your passions are. If you have any passion, I'm sure you can figure it out here.
Find a place for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so neat because if you love the outdoors, then there's tons of outdoor stuff you can volunteer with and get involved with. If you love business, as Mr. Resner here does, it's all sorts of ways to be involved philanthropically through your businesses, like you guys have done with the Dutch Brothers and what you've done with that. So Judy, what made you decide to even get involved though? I mean, a lot of people live their whole life and they never volunteer a single hour unless it's drug out of them. So I know it's kind of part of your DNA. What
truly
created that?
And those are the words I would have used because as a small child, my parents were very engaged in the community, and my brother and I, we went wherever they were going. Yeah. You know, if they were doing something political, if they were doing something through the church, if they were doing something for a service club, my brother and I were always brought along. And it just was it was a family outing for us. And service to your community was not an if, it was a when and where.
Right.
And I think that's critically important. And I think that's also a big factor in our own community.
Absolutely.
I am so pleased every time I go to events that many of same things we're all involved in. You see families with their kids.
Yes.
Or you see kids coming there because they're doing it for school or scouts or whatever.
Right.
This is a hands-on community.
I do really think that is kind of the handiwork behind Reading. I mean, I feel like all of us get involved somehow, and that's kind of how we're all connected in general, wanting to do something better for the community, always. So, I was just going to ask how she started with Turtle Bay, because that's kind of one of the big things here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick, and for those people out there that aren't involved in the community but would love to get involved, how would you recommend somebody, if I have a heart for helping people but I've never done it, I mean, how would you suggest somebody go about that on their initial entry into volunteering?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because it sort of depends on what your age is and at what point you want to enter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I were y'all's age, I'd probably hit something on Facebook and say, this is what I want, tell me about that. But on the other hand, for those people who might not be so computer literate, the newspaper does a fabulous job about telling you on a pretty much a daily basis what's going on, who's doing it, how to get in touch with something, whether it's outdoors or whether it's knitting or whether it's victims of some abusive situation that need a self-help group. There are lots of sources of information. And I think if you're that kind of person, your natural curiosity is going to help you weave into what you do. We've got great coverage both all over the North State, on radio, on television, and in the print media about community activities. So I think there are a lot of entry points.
So your career, you came here with Turtle Bay, right? What brought you here when you moved here 22 years ago?
No, it was a business move on the part of my former husband. And that's where I had my first experience of, oh my gosh, we're going to come to a small town in very hot Reading. And I thought, coming from the Bay Area, this is like, really?
It's extremely hot for you coming from the Bay Area.
Yeah, and I said, okay. But it was just when those early discussions were starting about Turtle Bay. The 3 museums were existing independently. There was some thought about the need to maybe come together on one campus instead of trying to have a capital campaign to build a new art museum, a new history museum, a new forest museum. And I had experience in that field. Some of you may be familiar with the Fort Mason complex down on the Marina Green, where John Lyon's Magic Theater, Green's Restaurant, and all that. Well, that was one of my earliest projects when they were just still those nasty piers filled with all sorts of rubbish.
Wow.
And we came together in multidisciplines to build that art and cultural complex down there. So when I understood, and that was my profession for a number of years, so when I came up here and saw a similar idea about combining stories to tell a richer story, I just kind of raised my hand and said, I'm here to volunteer.
That's awesome.
So I started out volunteering when we first got here.
Okay, and then how did that morph into becoming CEO of Turtle Bay?
As my hair turned whiter and whiter, well, I think I was the 3rd employee hired eventually after I was just volunteering. And then the project got bigger. I had some business skills that I could bring to it. I had nonprofit management experience. I also had corporate business experience. And I had a huge interest in the arts and humanities anyway. So it was the perfect example to do in one place everything that I wanted. And skill and passion can take you just about anywhere.
That's right. And you're not shy.
Well,
so
you may have noticed. Yes.
I don't think that there was a problem for her to say, I'll run it. I've got that. I can do this.
Well, I think like all of you all too. I'm interested in people. I'm interested in stories. I'm interested in connections.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's what builds community. Whether you're talking about an art museum or another different kind of nonprofit or a business, whatever it is, connections make things work. And that's what interested me with Turtle Bay.
Well, it seems like you just kind of get into things and you're kind of like the catalyst for a lot of amazing projects that are going on here. I know that you're also on the Shasta Library Foundation, and you're on the board.
Oh, I'm actually, I'm no longer on that board. It still remains very close to my heart. I think the library is one of the best things that ever happened to this community, and the library is now receiving over 100,000 visits a month.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So all those people who said, "Oh, the library, it's so 19th century," it's not. I mean, the libraries have kept up with the change in communication, with the need for communication instantly. It's not just all about checking a book out.
And
although that is a good. They have great books there at the library. They have all the modern, all the current, hot off the press books. So.
And they have digital downloads. So you have an e-reader.
That's nice to know.
With your library card, you can just download any book right there, just like you can from all the commercial ones. So it's a great gathering place. I mean, they do literacy training there. You can work to get your GED there. You can rent a symphony. You can borrow sheet music. You can pick out a great book. You can have a computer class. You can learn to knit, dance. I mean, there's so many things going on at the library. It really is a heartbeat of the community.
Yeah.
So yes, I was passionate about that.
Yes, no, I love that you were so passionate. It's good for the community to know that. I mean, I really think I do think that a lot of people have a negative view of, having a brick and mortar library, and, with all the technology and everything that we have available to us, you kind of forget that the library is another place that you can go to do all these things.
100,000 visits a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's a beautiful library too. I mean, it's an amazing place. I took my little boy there probably a month ago, and I was blown away by how nice that place is.
Well,
Lots of
there's great
activities.
opportunities for children Beckett's age there.
Yeah.
I mean, all your children's
Yes,
age. And my grandkids, I mean, there's a lot going on with early reading and activities for kids, and it's a good place. It's a place where you can go no matter what stage you are in life. There's something for everybody at the library.
Now they just need coffee in there.
I wasn't gonna throw that in there. I need coffee everywhere.
There used to be a coffee shop there.
Yeah, when we opened, there was, but
Yeah.
they couldn't figure out how to make it work. But okay,
we
so
have
back to you.
Brothers.
That's right.
Back to you.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Women's Fund. Tell us what that is, and how can people get involved? Tell us about it.
That's been a remarkable experience for me. There were a group of 10 of us about 4 years ago who got together, and we were frankly alarmed at the status of women and families in Shasta County. I think as much as I've been involved in this community, I didn't realize how much of a silo I lived in.
Yeah.
I thought as a community activist, I really kind of knew what was going on. I was horrified to learn that we had the second highest child abuse rate in the state.
Wow.
Can you fathom that?
Mind-blowing.
Wow.
No,
That was a silo I was living in.
The second highest.
Second highest child abuse rate.
wow.
We have 83% of the women in Shasta County do not have anything beyond a high school degree.
Wow.
83% of the women don't have a college degree, AA, or any certification or anything beyond that.
Wow.
65% of the minimum wage workers are women. And we know a minimum wage job is not enough to support a family. So learning some of these numbers and seeing what was happening to women and families, we felt like we needed to do something. We are our brother's keepers. And even in the middle of this worst recession that hopefully we're climbing out of now, we decided to come together and say, we need a fund that directly addresses this. And secondly, we felt it was important that we really highlight the possibilities for collective giving. You know, I can't write a check and solve all the problems, but together, if we collectively pool our funds, we can make a grant that can make a difference somewhere. And that's what the Women's Fund is all about, collective philanthropy and addressing the issues that critically affect women and families in our community. Our social safety net is shredded, and we want the Women's Fund to be one of those needles that's helping sew that fabric back together by building community, by building a collection of philanthropy, by inviting people to come in and put a face on their giving.
That's right.
And so the Women's Fund, we basically take members all year round, because the more we can tell our story, the more people who are engaged, men and women, are joining. We hold educational forums to sort of help us break away these silos that maybe we don't even realize we live in. And they're always free.
Which are very impactful as well.
Yeah, and they're
People
really
come
just
away.
designed to put the information out there. If we don't know what the real needs are in our community, how can we respond?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what the Women's Fund is trying to do. We're not saying at the expense of you're giving somewhere else, but come be educated, kind of like you were talking about, how do you find what you want to volunteer? Come be educated about these issues and see if there's something you think you can do, and perhaps the Women's Fund can be one vehicle to help you find some of those issues about which you care.
And so when the members all they're pooling their giving,
Right.
and then how do you decide what you're going to support each year?
That's another thing that's great about this membership, is that we, as a cabinet, send out to our membership 3 topics every year, and the membership votes on what focus area do they want their grants to be. And then the members themselves, the pool of members, which we literally just draw at random, form a grants committee to review all the applications that we get from area nonprofits. We're not the doers, the deliverer of the service.
Right.
We want to support those agencies who are really focused on women, giving women and families a hand up, not a handout.
Right.
So the members review the grant applications that we get as well. So, it's really great when you can see what a difference your participation makes. It's not like writing a check to the great unknown.
No, it's extremely touching. Actually, I've been to one of the meetings. Well, actually, I've been to a couple of them. But one of them, I attended, and it was about they fixed the teeth.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What organization was that? Because
that was tremendous.
It was
Wow.
amazing to see the transformation. And those women, for their confidence, and some of them were, they were in rehab. They had gone through rehab.
They were
but still
straight ready
had
to work.
Yes.
That's
now
a
they were ready.
fabulous organization. It's Shasta Community Health.
Okay.
And they do restorative dentistry for women who are ready to go back into the job market but don't have any teeth.
Wow, that's great.
You can't go for a job interview if you're missing teeth, either through bad dental care or drugs or whatever, bad nutrition. And so they carefully screen these women, and our grant supported their efforts to do restorative dentistry to these women.
Talk about life-changing, Judy.
Well,
That's
talk about
really
hands-on
life-changing. Yeah.
This is not administrative costs somewhere.
No,
Gives
it's
me
filling a
chills.
void, and that's what I think is.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I wanted to say that because it's so impactful, and people don't realize how impactful. Because when you come to the meeting, sometimes you're like, well, it's a lot of people throwing money at something, but you're not. It really is collectively gathering all this money together, and I'm not going to be a billboard for it, but it
I
is
like
a really.
billboards.
It's an amazing organization, and it really does help out a lot of women, a ton.
And families, and then the community. It's that's the beauty of it. It's not just like a women's thing, because when you affect a woman, you affect a community.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're so good at. Now tell us a little bit about the reading. You're doing some literacy work now. Tell us about that.
I've always been a great reader, and I'm happy all my grandkids are great readers too, and my kids. And I started a program about 9 years ago with my Rotary Club called Reading Rotarians, and it was to go and work in the schools in the reading resource labs to help bring kids up to grade level. Because if you're not reading at grade level by the time you're in third grade, you're in real trouble. From kindergarten to third grade, you learn to read. And from third grade on, you read to learn.
Interesting.
Yeah, because that's when you start applying these basic skills. Fourth grade is a massively different year than kindergarten through third grade. And through that, I started realizing, along with a lot of other people, what was happening down here, that these kids weren't at grade level. Why were there so many kids who couldn't read at grade level by the third grade? And you start peeling back that. And I started working with people from Public Health and Shasta County Office of Education, Head Start, First Five Shasta, and learning that the problem is that when our kids come to kindergarten, they are not reading ready. And that means they don't have any concept of sitting with a book and having the pages turn, or having been read to, and so some of those early learning skills are missing.
Yes.
And this is not a question of income, gender, race,
Interesting.
demographics, nothing.
Really?
No. This is what our silo tells us. It's poor kids who can't read. Come to some of these reading resource labs. I have kids all across the economic spectrum, and what you see is that they're not being read to at home. Parents are on the computer,
Too busy.
watching TV,
Yeah.
just solely on an iPad. There's not a lot of that lap sitting
Right.
in early ages. I had this great story about these friends, and I get real passionate about read to your kids. And we were at this meeting, and the husband came up to me and said, I have to leave right now and go wake up my daughter because we're not reading anywhere as much to her as we should. And this was a financial professional.
Yeah.
So it is not anything. It is read to your kids, and how many neural pathways get established by holding, touching, by oral and oral language skills.
Yes.
All of them tactile together. When you have the perfect storm of all five senses, they smell you as their parent, hugging them, loving
nurturing.
them. I mean, everything.
All
So what are you
combined.
doing? We have about 3 minutes. So what are you doing with that particular need? What have you put together?
A number of us have put together what we call the Shasta Early Literacy Project, and it's providers in the field and it's also the educational system, and we're bringing in law enforcement and the business community because they call it illiteracy for a reason. It affects crime rates. They judge the number, one of the metrics for how many prison cells we need to make is what's the rate of illiteracy.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Teen mothers, teen pregnancies, you can trace back to poor reading skills. Economic impact, how can you apply for a job if your reading skills are subpar? You cannot have a 21st century job without 21st century language and reading skills. So our Shasta Early Literacy Project is focusing on how do we make sure our kids are getting read to from birth to kindergarten, all the time, every day. 20 minutes a day can totally change the outcome for a child, academically, economically, and health-wise.
Well,
That's
Judy,
amazing. Well, I'm going to get serious real quick. So you ran in the gnarly neon
I
run.
was so good.
Tell us about it. Because I didn't even know that it was happening. I forgot all about it until I saw everybody walking up North Market in neon.
You know, it was great fun. It's why this community is so fun. There were babies in strollers. There were people in wheelchairs. There was everybody. And by the end of the race, we were all one color because you had thrown all that stuff on you. And I happened to have had some bad knee surgery, so. But there were people walking, like I said, pushed in strollers and in wheelchairs, and it was just all coming together.
fun.
And it was just hysterical.
So fun.
And it raises money for helping scholarships through Park and Rec so that kids who are in need can go to Reading Recreation programs.
that's amazing.
Great fun. I'm going to do every one of them after
Chris,
that.
you need to ask the magic question
I have a
that
question for you.
viewers of the forum need to know. We're going to do this every time with our guests. Chris has a magic question, and we're going to end up with Judy answering this.
Okay, I'm going to give
Do
you.
I get some Dutch Brothers coffee, though?
If you answer it correctly. Actually, there is not a correct answer.
Okay.
But I'm going to give you 4 choices.
Okay.
And I want you to pick the one that best describes yourself. Are you a canoe, a lake, a river, or a paddle? And tell us why.
Well,
You have to think about it.
You put me on the right spot because I'm certainly anything to do with water. I mean, I love water. I think I'm a canoe. My hands can be my paddles, and my loquaciousness might be the wind if I didn't have enough paddles. I enjoy the experience of starting somewhere and going somewhere else.
That's good.
Seeing everything along the way, but moving towards something.
That's good. I like that.
There
Good job.
you go.
I think you see. There wasn't really a right answer, but
No.
that was good. That was good. I think you earned yourself some Dutch Bros.
That's great. I think
Okay.
it's fabulous what you all are doing.
Oh,
and giving the
thanks.
rest of us and all over the North State a chance to think about other ways in which we want to all be involved in our wonderful communities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ashley, you want to wrap us up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank you, Judy, for coming onto the show and really educating the public on everything that you've done and what this community has to offer. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching the forum this week. If you have anyone that you'd like to recommend or you have any comments or suggestions, please go to our Facebook page, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Local program funding provided by a generous grant from Union Pacific. Union Pacific, building America.
I'm Karen Hoyt, Marketing Director at Shasta Regional Medical Center, and we're proud to be part of the conversation that the forum at KIXE is bringing to our community. Shasta Regional has been around for more than 60 years supporting our community, and we would like to invite you to be a part of the forum on KIXE. Together, we can support the community that gives us back so much. Thank you.